So I had one of the brothers send me something that was actually historical out of the Jet magazine. And this was back in 1953, but I'll get to that here in a minute. But what was interesting, and we'll go through the article itself out of the Jet magazine. Now, Jet was a very classic black publication back in the day. I remember, reading the Jet magazine every week. I remember that and find out what's going on in Black America. But let's go on and look at what they were talking about in the Jet magazine back in 1953. So let's review it. So as you can see on the Jet magazine, the publication is November 12, 1953. It cost 15 cents at the time to get a Jet magazine. So this is on the front cover of a black publication. This is a black publication. Do Japanese women make better wives? And you can see here, it says Indianapolis couple have found happy married life since wedding 3 years ago in Japan. Now, we know a lot of brothers went to World War II at the time. And so the original brothers that was traveling, these brothers were military, men, right? 1953, brothers didn't really have the bread in the bag they got now, because of the fight of our brothers and sisters during that time period. They give us opportunity. Now, when you have all these brothers say they're traveling, unless you was going to the military back then, brothers really wasn't traveling too much. So as brothers was finally getting out of America, get some experiences of not being treated the way they were really, because they were dealing with some real hardcore racism back then, right? But let's get into this article. I found the article itself, not just a picture here, but let's go there. All right. So as you can see here, do Japanese women make better wives? It said that many times since his return from Japan to settle in Indianapolis, former Sergeant Bruce Smith has been questioned about the bride he brought with him. He said he's a Florida-born American Negro. Of course, in that time period, that's what they would say. It wasn't offensive to say that term. It's not offensive to me now, really. They say I'd rather say that word than the other one. They say she's Japanese. They say which made her. They say and their marriage a target of the curious. They say, I like it, Smith told the latest interrogator. He said, when my wife waits on me hand and foot, gives me a massage when I come home from work, washes my back in hot water, and turns down the bed so I can take a nap before dinner. Now, that's more so a cultural thing. Most black men aren't asking for that much, but, hey, the brother was cool with that. He said, now, Mrs. Soyoko Smith, it said, who had been listening, picked up the thread of the conversation. Say, I feel it is my duty to my husband's bidding, to do my husband's bidding, she said. And if this makes me different from American women, then I don't know what to do about it because acting this way makes him happy. If he's happy, I'm happy. You say it is that tendency of the Japanese wife to regard her husband as the master. Of course, like I said, that's their culture. It said, which has caused the greatest controversy among those who appraise Japanese American marriages. It said, biologically, they agree there is little difference between the American wife and the Japanese wife, but they fear the docile attitude of Japanese wives. They fear it. Okay. And this was in 1953 when, the women were not like they were today in America. They didn't have the tattoos in 1953. They wasn't drunk all over the place. And I know they still had juke joints back then. I know they still had some things going on back then, but it's not in the abundance. That's the right word, as it would be today. They say in the U.S., the trend is toward emancipation of the woman from her old time dual role as mother, housekeeper. They say today, American women seek and receive equal rights with men in many facets of life. They say they vote, handle finances of the home, and in many instances work male jobs. They say a Japanese wife finds all this hard to understand, as in her homeland, she regards her husband, they say, as number one, and herself as number two. They say, or as Mrs. Smith explains, I think only what I think Bruce wants me to think. I personally would never like nothing like that. I'm talking on a personal level, because I don't have all the answers and I don't want somebody to be mindless around me. I mean, shoot, I don't know, but hey, if he liked it, and some guys want that and that's fine. It said that kind of thinking, says critics of Japanese wives, is spoiling our men. It said actually American women have nothing to fear from Japanese women. It said for only little more than 6,000 servicemen married Japanese girls. It said just how many of these were Negro servicemen and how many brought their wives home is subject to guess. Here we go. This is what caught my attention in this article right here, this paragraph. It said, but jealousy has flared up in American women, especially in cities like Indianapolis, where a substantial number of Japanese Negro families have settled. Taking the what have they got that we haven't got attitude, American girls have shunned the Japanese girls, leaving many of them lonely and confused. It looked like history is starting to repeat itself if you look at this. Now, they're not saying what they got that we don't have. And yes, a few of them actually have made videos and actually said those terms, actually. It's far and few in between, but they have actually said that this is like a repeat all over again, the responses. But look, they said that they were jealous. Jealousy flared up when these, men would bring back their Japanese wives. Because, World War II, all of that. And you remember the situation where we dropped the atomic, bombs and all that on Nagasaki, and this is the history of that. It said at the same time, however, Japanese brides generally do all in their power to hold their men. It say an American, who marries a Japanese woman soon learns that there are many obstacles to overcome. He also finds that tenderness and tolerance must be exercised during the wife's orientation period here. It said difficult, but despite these difficulties, most men frankly say that they prefer their Japanese wives to any other. It said something new. It says one husband. Another husband praises his Japanese wife because she creates glamour instead of seeking it. Uh-oh. This is back in 1953. He said that let's go back. It said she creates glamour instead of seeking it. It said is undemanding, finds beauty in everyday life, and has a sense of teamwork. He said between my wife and me, says this husband, there's a deep feeling of belonging. It's a kind of friendship, almost a kinship, that I have seen in few American marriages. So, as you can see, brothers, the military men some of them were bringing back Japanese wives, and you saw the responses to it. The same thing. Now, of course, back then they didn't have social media, but if they had social media back in 1953, then I'm pretty sure it would be some of the same responses, just a little bit more venom. But I will say this, due to the history, back in 1953, that's around the time period where you say the average age of marriage for at least the sisters was 19 years old. So more of them were still married. This was really very few minority. Remember, they say only 6,000 servicemen had Japanese wives. 6,000 out of the thousands upon thousands went. And they can't quantify how many black men had Japanese wives, but that was so far and few in between. At that time period, the majority of black women were married. Black women took care of their household, did whatever, right? Now, of course, you always going to have some problem children no matter what era that's in. But the reaction, what I wanted to cover, the reaction of what they got that we don't have type of deal. And just now you look at it today, at least those sisters back in 1953, in my opinion, had way more weight to say what they're saying than what they say in 2023. Because those women in 1953, that's like our grandmothers back in those time period, were cooking. They were cleaning. They respected their husbands. They didn't have all these issues and problems. They weren't trying to be city girls. They wasn't doing hot girl summer. You understand? They wasn't doing any of that mess back in 1953. We talking about en masse like we seeing today. So I would definitely listen to a woman talking in 1953 than one is listening in 2023. No. You didn't see no knowledge of color hair back in 1953. But they were jealous of it regardless. Now you fast forward to the day where they're not like our grandmothers at all. They're not. And then they're more venomous about it because is literally in their face. And now because of globalization, remember back at one point in time, brothers had to be in the military to travel. Now you don't have to be in the military. So they can go in, if they want to go to Mexico and get a wife. They want to go, like the one brother. Remember one brother I interviewed, his wife was from Mexico and everything. You know, or they go to Colombia, or they go to Brazil or Dominican Republic, or they going to, you know, I know some people that's going to Ghana. You know, some people going to Nigeria, some people going to South Africa, Kenya. There's a lot of brothers in Kenya. Last time I went to Kenya, I met a brother over there. He said that he met a woman, he gonna get married. There's a lot of brothers going to Kenya, believe it or not, and marrying Kenyan women. Of course, you know, the Philippines and the Thailand thing too. These brothers not going to be waiting around. Just like they didn't wait around in 1953, they're not going to wait around in 2023. If these brothers got to leave America to go find a wife so they could settle down and have a family, I told you I'm all for it. I'm all for these men getting families because family is stability. And men, they need that stability of family. And unfortunately, in America, the nuclear family has been eroded so much. The nuclear family has been attacked so much. I mean, women can't even be women anymore because you have all these trans women trying to take over everything from biological women. This is how crazy it is in America. It's crazy. And if you speak up against it as a man or even as a biological woman, that's a problem. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, it's so much that's just out of line and out of pocket in this country, outside of the feminism and all the other mess that goes on in this country. You know what I'm saying? The laws, the family law, court laws, or how the laws are toward your own children that you made. You made your children when these people get to tell you when you could see your children, if you could have your child. It's crazy. Versus in other countries, you know, they like, and when we talk about outside of Western countries now, I'm not telling you leave here and go to Canada. That's the same thing. You just stay yourself in America. I'm not telling you leave here and go to freaking UK. That's the exact same thing as here. You know, nowhere in the Western world. Don't. If you're going to go somewhere in the Western world, just stay in America. And at least you got more rights here, right? But I want y'all let me know what y'all think about that. You know, this is, like I said, this is back in 1953. 1953, with this publication out of the Jet magazine of brothers in the military going to Japan and bringing back wives. And so it's been going on. It's been going on. Like I said, I haven't seen nothing like that, of course, or heard that. I even know this existed. So shout out to the brother who shared that with me, but let me know.